Strauss-Zelnick went on CNBC and talked about the delay, because this is one thing to remember, is that GTA 6 represents a multi-billion dollar investment and a multi-billion dollars in revenue for the company. And so naturally, Take-Two having a delay announced is going to cause some investors to sit up and go, what's going on? What's happening? You know, what's going on? So Strauss went on to CNBC to talk about it and offer his thoughts. Let's see what he said, because there's actually a couple of interesting little nuggets in here that kind of slip out.
Slipping after the video game maker reported its fourth quarter results after the bell. The company issued weaker than expected guidance for the full year bookings, but stock, we mentioned, it's up 60% year on year. Joining us right now to break down.
Jesus, it's up. Hold on. Did he say 60 or 16? Which was it? Okay, this says it's up 27 year to date, 55% year over year. Damn. That's crazy, dude. That's crazy. That's wild. Okay. Well played, Take-Two. Do they pay dividends? I don't actually know. Do they pay dividends? No, they don't. Okay. This is why, like, I don't. It's one of the reasons why I don't invest in game stocks, because I love the games industry. I love gaming. Game companies, there's better places to put your money. I'm just saying. Okay, I'm just saying.
On the numbers and what is going on, we'll also talk about Grand Theft Auto, as you might imagine. Strauss-Zelnick is here, Take-Two chairman and CEO. What is going on? Where are we here?
Listen, we just reported a great year, pretty much firing across the entire range of the company. So Rockstar reported a better quarter for Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto Online. 2K had terrific releases with Civ 7. NBA is up year over year, sold in almost 10 million units. And Zynga has multiple hits in market, which is tough to do in the mobile space.
But everybody's focused.
Yeah, Zynga makes bazinga money, I'll tell you what.
Focus on Grand Theft Auto 6, right? Like that is the...
Is that a but? That seems like an and.
But the fact that your shares could be up 60% with the release delay of that by another 6 months
That's what I was going to ask. Let's talk about the delay, because people just want to understand what's happening there.
Yeah, I want to understand.
Well, it's pretty short delay. It's less than 6 months.
This is the first little nugget. A little something. It was delayed to the end of May. He said less than 6 months. That kind of suggests they were targeting like late December, which nobody was expecting. Everybody was like, yeah, October. But they might have, like according to this, he said less than 6 months and it was delayed to the end of May. So that would suggest that they were targeting like a Christmas launch for GTA 6, which I don't think there was a single person who was expecting Christmas. Could have been November. Yeah, it's possible that they would be targeting November. Go head to head with Call of Duty. But even then, like, people still would be surprised by that. So that's the first little thing where you hear it, you're like, oh, less than 6 months. Now, to be fair, it could be that he simply was thinking, well, we were going to launch it in 2025. We delayed it by less than 6 months out of the year. And that's probably what he means. Okay. Realistically, I think if they were going to launch in 2025, they would have launched it in October. Most likely, he's just saying, yeah, we were going to launch this year. We delayed it less than 6 months out from the year. Probably what he means. But still, it's fun to think about. Just when would they have put it? Anyway.
And generally, when we announce a date certain, we're able to hit that date. But the key thing is that Rockstar Games is trying to create the best thing anyone's ever seen in entertainment, not just interactive entertainment. That's a tall order. And I think consumers have huge hopes for the title. We just launched the second trailer to 475 million views in 24 hours, setting a new record. The last record, incidentally, was ours.
How much do you think the whole system was thinking about that in terms of the ecosystem was for the holidays?
What's interesting is that when they announced the delay, okay, calm down, Crane, calm down. When they announced the delay, we actually saw the shares of like Sony, the shares of Microsoft to a lesser extent, all drop. Other gaming stocks and peripherals, they all dropped because they were expecting GTA 6 to generate billions of dollars in extra spending. Like Sony was excited because people were going to buy PlayStation 5s and 5 Pros for GTA 6. And when they buy that console, they're going to buy other games too. And then they're going to buy an extra controller, and they're going to buy an extra, maybe, a couple of games. They're going to buy the online subscription. They're going to do all this. So just them delaying this one game caused ripple effects. I think Sony, don't quote me on the number, I think they said that they had to adjust their estimated earnings for 2025 by $600 million. $600 million simply because of the delay of GTA 6. That's wild. But that's the effect of something massive like this.
Was thinking about that game.
Well, let's not overstate the case. We all look at one another's release schedule and make sure that we don't stack up releases. So that's not unique to Grand Theft Auto. But the delay itself is really a reflection of desire to polish and create the best possible experience for consumers. And we as a company have been known not to have sort of slavish devotion to release dates, but rather to seek the highest quality entertainment. And that,
with some of their brands, yes. Not all of them. I would say there's been some Take-Two projects that were underbaked. But yeah, so with Rockstar, certainly, yes.
really, support.
Let's say guidance for full year bookings, 5.9 to 6 billion versus 7.82 estimated. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Recorded 3.5 billion impairment charge during Q4. Yeah, okay.
Supported our success over many years.
Have you played with it? I mean, have you seen it?
Is it done? Is it ready?
Done? You don't play a lot.
Still
though.
rendering?
I'm not a gamer.
We were talking about this earlier. You don't play a lot. So
Not a lot. I don't play video games.
At all?
No, I do not. I'm not the consumer in chief. I am responsible
when they show
for
you the game.
This is one of the more interesting tidbits of this interview. I'll let him finish talking, but I just want you to process that. He's saying, I'm not the consumer in chief. I don't play these games. And I want to touch on this. And we're going to compare it to another executive that we all know and cherish, Jim Ryan. And I want to compare it to him because I also think he was not a gamer. So let's let him finish talking, and then we'll compare kind of their outlooks. Okay.
Do you offer notes on the game? How does that work?
I share my opinions pretty openly. I think being the consumer in chief in an entertainment business as the CEO is probably a mistake. I wasn't the consumer in chief in the movie business or the television business or the music business, even though, I certainly can read a script and I definitely love music and I was a musician. That's not my role. My role is to attract, retain, and motivate the best talent in the business and then get out of their way.
You sound crazy right now. Are you outside of your mind, sir? But the reason I want to let him say all of that is because there is a fundamental difference between different managerial styles, right? Like some managers, executives, they think, no, I know what people want. I know what they want to see. And I'm going to basically make movies I want to make, and the audience will love it too. Sometimes that works if the person really knows what they're doing, and if the executive is in tune with the audience. Back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, Bethesda Game Studios famously said that they didn't play test any games. They simply made games that they wanted to play. They said, we play test our own games. We play them. Kind of explains why there were so many bugs, but they were like, we play those games and we make the games that we want to play. And it just happens that games we like playing as a studio, the vast, millions upon millions upon millions of people also like playing them. So it creates a successful business. So sometimes you can have a personality driven director like a Todd Howard, who's just in tune with the community at that time. Danger is once they become out of touch with the community and what the community wants, you get like a Starfield, or you get games that disconnect with the audience and it doesn't work anymore. But then you have outlooks like this guy, Strauss Zelnick, who the phrase consumer in chief is it's a very derogatory term that's thrown around a lot. Think of Disney getting super involved in the production of movies. There's been all of these stories about how executives would go to movie sets and then offer notes on reshoots and be like, no, this scene needs to be shorter. And they're starting to go and tell the directors and producers how to change the scene because they think that they know better than the actual artists and people working on the project. And, it's something that can lead to a lot of problems. Because again, sometimes it can work out, but it can also go really, really poorly very quickly if you don't actually know what you're talking about. So trying not to be a consumer in chief and instead separating yourself from the business, being like, I'm not a gamer, I'm going to run the business, but I'm not the consumer of this type of content. I can maintain objectivity with it, and I'm not going to make emotional decisions just because I personally really like, Red Dead. I think it's the example maybe we could offer as a counter is like Herman Holst. Herman Holst is a gamer, and he loves him some Horizon. Like, a lot. Okay. If you ever like, hey, is this relationship I'm in healthy? Just see if your significant other looks at you the way Herman looks at Aloy. Just see if you've got the same level of passion, because that man loves him some Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West. And as a result, I would argue it's led him into situations where he has made poor decisions or decisions that held back his companies. Like, we started the stream off playing that song, Lego Horizon Flopped. Everybody could have told you that game was going to flop, that was not going to do millions of copies, that it wasn't even going to do hundreds of thousands of copies. Like, that game was going to flop. It was just something nobody wanted, nobody needed. It didn't make any sense. And yet he greenlit that, and they spent millions on it because he's like a consumer in chief, and he's got his eyes to focus. I think it's a similar thing where he got married to Concord. There were reports from like Colin Moriarty where he was saying that discussions in the studio were that Herman Holst was calling Concord a Star Wars level IP. People jokingly called it Herman's baby because he loved it so much, because he was like a consumer in chief, and it kind of blinded him to some of the outside factors that were affecting it. So I think keeping separated from the content can be really good for the business, certainly. But it can also go poorly, as we saw, I would argue, with Jim Ryan's tenure at PlayStation, where he was not a gamer, certainly not a consumer in chief, but he became so fixated on live service games that he basically wasted billions of dollars and years and years and years of dev time from some of the most prolific and accomplished developers in the industry. But I would argue it's mainly because Jim Ryan was an idiot. I'm sorry. I'm saying it. Locking it in. I feel like you could have shown any number of these games to a like normal everyday gamer, and they could have told you no. I feel like you could have done that pretty easily and avoided all of this trouble. Okay. So yes, we can point to Jim Ryan and be like, oh, Jim Ryan also wasn't a gamer. Yes, but he was, what's the term? Stupid. So it's fine. He's a millionaire. I don't be like, that's mean. Don't say that. No, dude, he laid off so many people. He screwed up the business for so many people. He fired so many hundreds or thousands of people because of his incompetence. And then he got to ride off into the sunset, retiring into his lake house and with millions upon millions of dollars. He's fine. He can take it. Screw Jim Ryan. Moving on. Strauss, what else you got?
In terms of just trends in the business, how much of it is going mobile, and how much do you think stays on the console?
Well, it's all mobile. Everyone has phones, don't you know? Dude, I'm actually very interested in hearing his answer here.
Well, mobile is a fast-growing part of our business, and the interactive entertainment business broadly is the fastest-growing part of the entertainment business. The reason that we acquired Zynga nearly 3 years ago is because mobile is such an important part of the business. Today, that's a little bit over 50% of our net bookings. And it's going incredibly well.
What does that look like to you 5 years from now?
Well, that's actually the point. The reason that we made that decision at the time that we did was I looked actually 10 years down the road and said, I can't imagine in 10 years only being exposed to console and PC. I think we have to be exposed to mobile. That's where a huge part of the market is. That's basically our older consumers and our female consumers are actively in the mobile business.
This is, I'm sorry, this is refreshing. This is very nice to hear. Okay. It's important to understand that not all gamers are like homogeneous, like that not all gamers are the same. Mobile gamers, there's a lot of them. They tend to be older and predominantly female. They just do, okay? But understanding that those gamers are different than the gamers playing on PS5 or Xbox or PC is crucial. It's crucial. And I also appreciate that instead of having like their established studios just try to crank out a bunch of this, he goes and tries to acquire a company that specializes in this, Zynga. And it's like, yeah, they're going to do the mobile stuff, and we'll let companies like Rockstar do what they do. But we're not going to make Rockstar put GTA 6 iPhone edition out. Like, we're not going to do that. Doesn't make sense. It's just crucial to understand that certain audiences are different. Okay. And they go to their own spaces. They do their own thing. They have their own behaviors and habits. But it's also why, like, I think you've seen Take-Two be one of the most aggressive when it comes to monetization strategies, specifically with sports games. They, with, correct me if I'm wrong, have any of you guys played NBA? Have any of you guys played NBA 2K games? Do they still do the thing where they play commercials in between games? Do they still do that? Remy, ew, no. That's funny. Just, ew, gross. No, of course I don't. They were experimenting with it for a while. Yeah, 2K21, was this the first time they experimented with it? But they experimented with this because, like, they viewed it as its own thing, where, like, literally you would be playing a game of NBA 2K in your living room, and then it would start playing an ad while you played, because they were like, well, it's like you're playing an actual NBA game with commercial breaks. It's like an actual TV, aired game of NBA. Like, there you go. It's immersive. It's not bad. It's immersive. 2K TV. Yeah. So, like, they've been aggressive with it, but I think it's because they also understand that there's certain, audiences that are more prone to excessive monetization. The stuff you can get away with on mobile, it's unbelievable. Like, it's crazy. They just straight up will be like, yeah, you can't play the game for more than 10 minutes. Otherwise you have to give us more money. It's insane. Like, the stuff that some of these companies get away with on mobile is wild. But then you see every once in a while they'll slip and they'll try to do the same thing on PC or on like console. And they try to, like, do a similar pricing strategy there, and it goes so poorly, but it's because the audiences are different. They're just very, very, very different. But anyway, continuing.
And so it's different. That's what's interesting about it is, okay, people are going to be on the phone, but they're still have the core gamers are not necessarily migrating in the same way.
It's not a migration. It's in the same way that people aren't migrating from half-hour comedies to 2-hour movies. And people aren't migrating from 2-hour movies to TikTok. Right. These serve different needs at different times and sometimes different populations.
Thank you. Again, it's refreshing. Yes. Like, Take-Two is not like this is not a benevolent company. All I'm saying is that this is what a I think executive who understands the gaming industry sounds like, versus 95% of the other people that we look at on this channel. So it's refreshing to hear a guy that can at least acknowledge, no, it's not a migration. It's not about console gamers are becoming mobile gamers, which, if you remember back with the Xbox One era, all these executives were like, yeah, there's never going to be a console again. We're never doing that again. It's just not happening. Everything's going mobile. Everybody's getting iPhones. Nobody's going to be using consoles in 10 years. But no, it's not a migration from X to Y. They're just different. They're separate. And that's good. That's okay. But it's not a migration. It's something so simple to understand, but it's something that, many, many very powerful, wealthy, influential people in this industry don't seem to understand.
Can I ask you to weigh in on a headline this morning? Because I'm curious what you think. I don't know if you saw, Charter is merging with Cox.
I did.
And I would imagine.
Shout out Cox.
Broadband is an important part of the way you think about how you get these games to people.
Absolutely.
So is that a good thing or a bad thing? What do you think happens? Do you think the government allows this? And do you think there's going to be a lot more of these mergers?
I think the combined market share is such that this FTC is likely to be friendly to the deal. I think the last FTC obviously would have stood in the way because
what else would they do?
Well,
right.
exactly.
Okay.
I mean, they stood in the way of you grabbing a taxi on Broadway. So I think that it'll probably be fine. I think it's a reflection of the fact that with cable programming going where it's going, which is to say in a southerly direction, what remains is a really good distribution business, and that consolidation makes sense.
Is the satellite business matter to you? Do you think about that? We were talking. I only mentioned that because we were talking about sort of the train tracks. And the idea that maybe satellite is ultimately going to upend the value of those train tracks.
It's really, what you're saying with new satellites is actually just traditional overbuilding. But overbuilding is valuable when people are underserved in areas that have fiber.
Right.
And that does still exist both here and outside of the U.S. So
Yeah, you guys know I was waiting on fiber for a long time. I was paying $300 a month where I live because there was literally no alternative. It was this company, the one company that was doing the $300 a month, or a different company that would charge $180 a month for literally like 5 megabit down, I think is what it was. Like speeds that would have been slow back in like 2007, you know, like crazy slow speeds. So I finally got fiber and it's been fantastic. It's been wonderful, but it took ages. And prior to that, I actually had like a little Starlink mini dish that I would use. You guys remember I had to use it for streams and stuff every once in a while because the internet would just randomly drop and it was terrible. So yeah, satellite internet's crazy cool.
I'm not worried about overbuilding actually destroying value in distribution because, first of all, it's not historically the case. Secondly, there's so much opportunity for broader distribution. From our point of view, as an entertainment company, a software creator, more distribution, better distribution, always a good thing.
You want the overbuilding.
Well, we want to be able to reach consumers wherever they are in the highest quality way.
Which may include, we talk about, and maybe, we could talk a little bit about whether it is the Middle East or other regions that you're eyeing for expansion, but, these are not, it's not just kind of industrial businesses that have their eye on those dollars. And I think that was highlighted with the president's trip this week, and some of it was all about AI. This is not the oil stories from 20 and 30 years ago.
Oh, that's right. And look, our business still is basically a United States and Western Europe and selected parts of Asia story. That's where our revenue comes from. And yet there's this massive growing market of consumers who love video games located in the Middle East, located in India, located in Africa. We are not serving that population in the way we need to. And if we don't focus on that now, where we're going to be in 10 years. So
is the internet a part of that?
Absolutely. I mean, distribution, obviously. Higher quality, particularly for Africa and India, is a big issue. The region, Middle East, is pretty well developed in
a different question.
Infrastructure.
The other big thing in like those areas of the world too, though, are there are certain types of games that may be popular in the West that probably won't fly in certain parts of the Middle East, based on my understanding. Okay. Like that's the content is also another piece of the puzzle for sure. So I will say it is refreshing to hear an executive that is competent. But again, I think the most refreshing and a reassuring thing is when he said, quote, as quoted here down in the comments from Sarah Baxter, "My job is to attract and retain the best talent in the business and then get out of their way." And I think that is precisely what company leaders like Jim Ryan, Herman Holst did not do. I think, in those cases, they got actively in the way. And then when they find any resistance, they lay off those teams and shut them down, literally losing that talent. And it's also the reason why I said that I thought the Microsoft closure of Tango Gameworks was so terrible was because it introduced a lot of instability into the equation. When you're trying to attract talent, very talented people don't want to go somewhere where they're like, yeah, I could make a very good game at this company and then I could still get fired. People don't like that. So they're going to go to the studio where they are valued and where their talent will be retained and treasured and fostered, that's where they want to be. And so I think it's really crucial for these companies to remember you got to take care of the artists, because a Microsoft strategy, and they've gotten better in recent years, but if you've ever worked or known somebody who's worked at Microsoft, like my dad worked at Microsoft for a long time in various capacities, like with contract work at other companies working for Microsoft. And their general philosophy is that like engineers are fairly expendable. You get 10 engineers from this company. Okay, have them work for 2 years, fire them, end their contract, whatever, and then you go hire 10 from India, and then you get rid of them, and you hire 50 from over here, get rid of them, and you just kind of bounce around because they're just engineers, they're coming in to work on this project, and then you move on to the next project. And that's not how you can make a healthy video game business. Like, you can't do that. You can't. It's just different, because video games are a mix of art and tech and coding, and like it's a mix of all these different professions, and you can't treat it like you're trying to throw together some security update for Windows 11. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. It's refreshing. It is interesting to hear that, the head of Take-Two is, at least he seems to have a pretty solid understanding of the video games business. And I'm excited to see what they've been working on, because obviously they're very, very comfortable. And when asked specifically about the delay and whether they think that they're going to actually hit that or have to delay it again, he said, based on our track record, the history shows they are pretty good at hitting a date once they've announced it, which is also true. With Red Dead 2, they delayed it from 2017 to early 2018, but they didn't give a date. And then they delayed it to the end of 2018, giving the late October date, and then delayed it from 2017 to early 2018, but they didn't give a date. And then they delayed it to the end of 2018, giving the late October date, and then they hit that. So given that they released the actual release date and announced that, I think it's likely they're going to hit it. They seem pretty confident about it. He took my thing. Red flag.